Fans noticed that after the alleged Paris sightings, KYO reappeared in Seoul quietly, without the usual build-up that accompanies her public return from overseas. No airport photos surfaced. No fan-taken videos. Just a sudden resumption of normal public life, as if nothing unusual had happened. But fans knew better than to assume nothing had changed. Her first public appearance after that period was subtle, almost deceptively ordinary. Yet people watching closely said her presence felt different. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just settled. She smiled easily. Spoke calmly. And carried herself with a composure that felt earned rather than performed. Almost immediately, fan communities began comparing notes. She looks lighter. She seems at peace. There's something calm about her. No one could point to a single moment. It was the overall energy, the kind that's hard to fake and harder to explain. Around the same time, Lee Min-ho resurfaced publicly as well. Again, quietly. No grand entrance. No major announcement. No immediate media blitz. His first appearance after the Paris window was professional, controlled, and remarkably relaxed. Fans commented on his demeanor, how unbothered he seemed, how grounded. There was no hint of defensiveness, no attempt to preempt speculation. And that absence of urgency became the story. Because if Paris had been nothing more than coincidence, fans expected something different. A casual mention. A schedule explanation. Something to close the loop. Instead, nothing was offered. The silence felt intentional. Fans began noticing patterns not in what was said, but in what wasn't. KYO didn't post throwback photos. Lee Min-ho didn't share travel content. Neither referenced Europe. Neither corrected the narrative. And perhaps most tellingly, neither appeared bothered by the conversations unfolding online. That calm response triggered deeper analysis. Fans started revisiting public moments from before Paris, and comparing them to after. KYO's interviews before the alleged trip carried a reflective tone, thoughtful, introspective, even cautious. Afterward, her answers felt clearer. More decisive. Less concerned with explaining herself. When asked about future plans, she spoke about alignment rather than ambition. About choosing what feels right, not what looks impressive. Fans interpreted this as a shift, from contemplation to confidence. Lee Min-ho's interviews followed a similar trajectory. Before Paris, he spoke about patience and timing. Afterward, he spoke about responsibility and balance. Not career balance, life balance. The kind of language people use when something internal has already been resolved. Fans didn't say it outright, but the implication was clear. Something had settled. The industry's response, or lack thereof, only reinforced that feeling. Entertainment reporters reportedly reached out to agencies with gentle inquiries, not accusations. No statements were issued. No clarifications provided. No effort made to redirect attention elsewhere. In Korean entertainment, this kind of silence is strategic. When rumors are false and damaging, agencies act quickly. When stories are true but meant to remain private, silence becomes protection. Fans weren't claiming certainty. But they understood the language of restraint. As the days passed, attention shifted to subtle details. KYO was seen wearing simpler styles. Less statement jewelry. Softer colors. Fans noted that her fashion choices felt intentional, understated rather than performative. Lee Min-ho's appearances echoed that simplicity. Clean silhouettes. Neutral tones. Nothing flashy. Nothing attention-seeking. Individually, these choices meant little. Together, they suggested alignment. Fans began asking a different question. Not what happened in Paris. But what changed after Paris? The answer, fans believed, was in how both stars moved forward, quietly, confidently, and as the weeks unfolded, the post-Paris shift became harder to dismiss. Fans began noticing how Song Hye-kyo interacted with her surroundings. At events, she appeared present but unguarded. There was no sense of performance, no attempt to manage perception. She spoke when asked, smiled when appropriate, and otherwise remained comfortably in her own space. This wasn't withdrawal. It was assurance. Lee Min-ho exhibited the same ease. He fulfilled obligations without overextending himself. He engaged with fans respectfully, but without leaning into fan service. The balance felt deliberate, like someone who knew exactly where his boundaries were. Fans began describing it as quiet confidence. And then came the industry whispers. Nothing concrete. Nothing reportable. Just subtle shifts in how entertainment insiders spoke about both stars. Conversations about future projects emphasized selectivity rather than volume. Longevity rather than momentum. Fans picked up on that language immediately. This wasn't about slowing down careers. It was about stabilizing lives. The Paris context loomed large in these discussions. Fans theorized that whatever happened there, whether meetings, conversations, or personal decisions, had brought clarity. Not necessarily answers the public would ever receive, but resolutions the individuals clearly had. The most striking part was how quickly the narrative cooled, not because interest died, but because fans sensed boundaries. There were no leaks. No paparazzi follow-ups. No sudden revelations. And fans, surprisingly, respected that. Comment sections shifted from speculation to observation. From excitement to reflection. Many wrote that even if nothing concrete ever emerges, they were content knowing that both stars appeared well. That response marked a shift in fandom culture. Years ago, silence would have been treated as provocation. Now, it was interpreted as intention. The story stopped being about romance and started being about autonomy. Two people choosing how much of their lives to share, and how much to protect. The Paris chapter, whether brief or significant, had clearly influenced that choice. Fans continued to notice small things. Song Hye-kyo's social media cadence slowed slightly. Posts felt more intentional. Less frequent, but more grounded. Lee Min-ho's engagement followed a similar rhythm. No oversharing. No cryptic hints. Just steady presence. Together, these shifts painted a picture fans couldn't ignore. Not of secrecy, but of completion. As if something that needed deciding had been decided. As if something that needed space had been given space. The industry remained silent, and that silence held. No follow-up stories emerged. No denials surfaced. No confirmations arrived. And perhaps that was the most telling part. Because in an industry built on exposure, choosing silence is rarely accidental. Fans eventually reached a quiet consensus. Whatever happened in Paris didn't need to be explained. What mattered was what came after. Two stars returning to Seoul, not defensive, not reactive, not changed, but settled. And sometimes, that's the clearest sign that something meaningful occurred, even if it never becomes public. Not every story ends with an announcement. Not every chapter is meant to be read aloud. Some are lived, closed, and carried forward quietly. And for Song Hye-kyo and Lee Min-ho, fans believe Paris was exactly that. A chapter that changed the tone, even if it never changed the headline.